What is going on, Property Hustlers? My name is Andrew, and today Skylar and I are joined by two very special guests. We're joined by Andrew and AJ here, who recently completed their flip projects in 2023. So we're going to start off first with profit margins because I think that's what everybody wants to hear about. So Andrew, how much did you make on your flip project?
We were $163.
$163,000. How many months?
4 months.
4 months. That is amazing. AJ, what was your profit margin?
95 grand.
$95,000, 4 months too?
Yep.
Amazing. These are amazing flip projects. So if anybody's thinking that it's not feasible in 2023, you got to get in touch and we'll talk about how you can do this yourself in this kind of market. So guys, let's get into a little bit. I know, AJ, we're going to start off with yours a little bit first because I think you both ended up seeing that project. Bought it off of a wholesaler. Tell me a little bit about it.
I went up to the project. It was in Barrie. It was kind of the configuration I like. I like a detached house, big lot. I just think there's multiple exits out of it. I had a guy who wanted to partner with me on it. He didn't like it. It was too messy for him. But when I went up there, I'm like, I like it. I'm gonna pull the trigger anyways.
Yeah.
But went up there. We got it with wholesale price included, $582.
$582,000.
Yeah.
All right. And what did you sell it for?
$840.
$840,000. Okay.
$845. Sorry, $845. Yeah.
Okay, so, and I remember looking at that property. That was a funny property. It had the tree in the center. It was, weird. I think it might have deterred people because, you look at it and it's kind of like, what's going on here?
Yeah, there's a hoarder. There's a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
But I think that just looks worse than it actually is. And I've done that cleanup and I wasn't scared of that work.
Did you do the cleanup yourself?
I was involved in that, but I didn't source the company. I hired just like Kijiji laborers and I got the junk bin myself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Andrew did a bunch of things like that himself too. But before we go on that, you saw the same property. Were you willing to buy that property?
I was. However, the numbers didn't work for me because of who I was partnered with at the time from a construction. I was a little more passive in it in the sense that I didn't dig deep enough in the numbers. I got the quote, ran the numbers for me. They didn't work, and you did it.
To be honest, my numbers were actually wrong. They weren't when I ran, I think initially we were seeing 50 grand.
Yeah.
It was closer to almost 100. It might have been 90 something. But the market also went up. But even if you don't take them to would have still made 40, 50. My numbers had margin in them.
Exactly. Yeah. Skylar was working a lot with you on how to go about renovating it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a top-notch renovation. It was a very nice renovation. We didn't cheap out on anything. So 50 grand when we do flips, we could have probably done it for 50 grand. We wouldn't have made as much though.
How much did you spend in total?
Closer to 100.
Closer to
yeah. So it might not be there's one HST. I'm probably not getting back. I'm putting it in there.
Yeah.
So there's just some errors that I didn't know about. You know what I mean? And then there's some things I didn't have in my initial costing, like trim. And there's just stuff I missed on my costing, but everything I think we did cost was around the price that I thought I'd get it for. My estimations were off. What was off is I just missed items. We avoided windows, which is a big save.
Yeah.
That's what saved me. Otherwise it would have been even worse. And then HVAC, I put a hot water tank in there. I didn't need to do this because I should just hired a company. I should just hired a company, got a hot water rental, and I would have saved myself another $2,500.
I always wonder about that because when you start renting basic utility like hot water tank, even the furnace rental, because I remember at one property, boilers are extremely expensive to install. And I sometimes opt to do the rental. But with boilers, it's a little different because maintenance on a boiler system is very expensive. But if you do it through a rental, they end up coming into service if there's ever any problems. So I always wonder about that. We would want to talk to a realtor about whether or not there's any value in renting it versus buying it and installing it because it's not very easily perceived when people come to see the house.
My take, and I talked to a few people, was hot water tank is just standardized. Most of them are rented, so they'll put up with it. Where if you get into a furnace rental, you're in no man land or uncharted territory. Sure, there's a little bit of value if it's owned, but I don't think they give it as much value as the cost that you put in. So that was my take there. But I got it wrong. I got it wrong, really. I should have just had a company come in.
There's things that we do differently when it comes to that. But in terms of having the idea of how to go about the renovations, because you two obviously renovated and flipped the properties at the same time. How was the costing down on the renovations process for you? How did you guys find that? Certain things end up blowing the budget. And when people think, oh, I'm going to flip a property, I'm going to spend $100,000 on it. How much am I possibly going to get done in terms of work, right? Because you guys budgeted this. Did you? And I know you said you had budgeted around $50,000 to start and you ended up spending $100,000.
That budget was really light. It wasn't accurate. I think where I got to 100, would that work? It would have been around 75. It might, something like that. I was making apps before. And so my main focus on the house was from a user experience, when somebody walks in, who's buying it, what's the first things they're seeing and what makes their emotions go, wow. And it's partially coming from you guys as well, right? And as long as I focused on what I call our wow categories, I was willing to spend. I wasn't going to be too cheap there. And then there's categories that I don't think mattered. And you get in your own head about you're a perfectionist or, and I don't think the mechanical room matters that much.
Yeah.
the basement, the third room, doesn't matter. You can make some mistakes. And so the wow categories are probably the kitchen, the washrooms, curb appeal. And that I did invest in those places. Windows, not so much. I think you probably get equal in terms of your ROI. So I focused on the wows, and if there's contracts or supply chain that are already in place, we try to use them.
And he built this beautiful fireplace where the TV goes right above the fireplace.
Yeah.
And when we talk about wow factor, when you walk in, you see this, made for you TV fireplace on the wall.
After people start getting into flips over time, I think people eventually find their signature, right? Something that they put in. Do you have one yet?
I don't have one, but I have to ask based on that. I saw this property while it was a hoarder house. You mentioned the TV on the fireplace. Yeah. Did you leave the TV on the ceiling in the basement?
Oh, no, we took that off. Yeah, we took that off.
The ceiling, was the TV on the ceiling?
There was a TV.
When you lay in the bed, you're just like looking at the TV.
Yeah.
I think that might have even been off at the point I closed. He did take some stuff.
Well, that's no fun.
Yeah.
Andrew, on your project, what's some of the biggest items you feel were like a good, effective cost downs that you were able to do?
Yeah, the kitchen cabinets were really effective in terms of saving money. Countertops as well.
Yeah.
Getting the right suppliers is crucial. You get to control your costs, keep things down. I even have a buddy who had a discount at a floor store.
Yeah.
And so I went there. I found that what was on sale. I didn't want to sacrifice the look to get a deal, because I've done that before, and I did that on a backsplash at this project.
Buy one on sale.
Didn't look the best, didn't matter in the end. So saving the money on the flooring was big as well.
Yeah.
And those were the main things.
How much did you get flooring per square foot? You did LVT, right?
Luxury vinyl planks we did for, it was like $240 a square foot.
What about you, AJ? What did you find it at?
$1.95.
$1.95? Okay, yeah. So when you're both doing about like 1,500 square feet.
Yeah. Mine might have been more, like
2017.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So rather, but you're landing approximately pretty similar costs, right? And then both of you did labor charges separately, right?
I want the $199 though.
Well, so there's a difference though. He did his project in Toronto. You did yours in Barrie, right? So you're paying the Toronto prices. You're paying the Barrie prices.
I got that from Brampton, that flooring. And there's a deal, I think, is slow, right? At that time, they were sitting on inventory. There was just deals at that point.
You can land these every now and then. Yeah. But there's the big ticket items. So flooring is a big ticket item, and then of course kitchen cabinets. By the way, the kitchen cabinets. What was the runner-up price? Because you used our guys for kitchen cabinets, right?
Yes. So we had the different contacts. There was one we looked at. That was just under $20,000. For the kitchen cabinets in the place. Now, we went with cabinets that weren't as high end, but when we're looking at different areas, we don't need to go super high end for different areas. You don't want to over renovate, which people do all the time. You don't get your money back. So going with a more economical option in an area that it's okay to do in, that's where you're going to make some money.
And see, the sweet spot with kitchen counters, and kitchen cabinets is timeline too. How quick did it take you to get those cabinets?
Well, so the cabinets were 2 weeks, but the countertop blew my mind. It was Thursday morning. I texted the guy, can you come look at these countertops? He said, sure, I'll come tonight. So that night he went, he said, okay, you just send me the deposit, sent the deposit. When can you install them? Tomorrow night, he said. Yeah. It was less than 48 hours for kitchen countertops. When you go to IKEA, they're going to tell you 2.5 weeks.
AJ, did you use our kind of guys?
That's why I'm smirking. Yeah, exact same. And I've used them for my cottage as well.
After,
because I just
introduced it, right?
Yeah. So I own a cottage that I was just renovating anyways. They're exactly like that. There's one guy that comes and measures. The same crew that came in twice that installed. Yeah. And they get the job done. It's fast and it looks good.
I know that this is also largely because of Skylar. We worked with tons of people and they take a long time, and then you have your crews just waiting for something to happen in order to be able to progress with the backslash or whatever. But Skylar had a conversation at some point with him and just said, listen, when we bring people to you, they're going to do regular business, service them quickly. Right. So I'd like to hear that they're actually doing that and they're being effective with it, because next day installation, I mean, where are you getting that? Right.
Well, we know real estate is a people business. You're connected through your network. So networking with people like you guys who have great connections for different things is massive. And the interesting thing about my experience is with using the supplier, I've never met them. I've never seen them. I have no idea what they look like. It was texts only and done so quickly. So when you have trusted partners and trusted networks, and you're sending e-transfers to people who you've never met, you can do so and get things done very quickly and effectively just by having that trust in your network.
Yeah. And this is where this network expands. Just so you guys know, for the next projects, we actually recently got into contact with people who are now doing better on insulation. So Home Depot insulation bats are about $78 for 97 square feet of insulation, R12. I found a supplier who's giving it to us for about $45 per bag. That's almost half the price of going to Home Depot, right? So when people look at these things and you go and you buy just straight off the shelf, it's kind of like buying straight off MLS, which you can make things happen with that. But imagine getting it for an even better price. It's kind of like, buying things with a wholesale method versus buying it from a wholesaler. Right? Which, we can talk about that and like how you did it, because you bought your property. You didn't buy through wholesale. You did the wholesale yourself.
Yeah. Well, not myself, because I don't do anything myself. It's all about the team and the people that, you work with.
Yeah.
But in this case, I partnered up with a guy to run a marketing campaign on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so we dealt with, I think it was 130 leads that came through, called a bunch of them, emailed a bunch of them. But there was this one lead that we got through this campaign, which ended up being the house that we purchased.
How many properties did you have to go see in order to find this one?
I actually only went to see one. Everything else I vetted through video calls or just discussions where I knew we were going to be miles apart on the price. I guess it was time well spent. It was one property that I saw and we offered and purchased that one.
How many did you vet remotely then?
130 calls. Probably vetted.
He's a Scarborough guy that you told me about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm connecting the dots now, yeah.
I think I vetted like 5. Like the ratio is pretty low.
Okay, I thought when you told me that first time, I thought you went to a bunch, but you just called them and like videoed them. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes more sense.
Time's so valuable that we got to make sure we use it wisely.
Of course. So how much did you spend on the marketing campaign?
All in all, it was $1,200. And then the way we structured it was as we were looking at it as a wholesaling business. So if we did wholesale this to someone, it would have been a certain wholesale price. Yeah. So we just split that. He got his half of the wholesale. I got my half that went toward the project.
How much do you think you could have made had you have wholesaled it?
Probably could have made a quick 30 grand.
30,000.
I would say.
Yeah.
But we hung on to it and made 163. So I think it was a good move over the 4 months.
And how much did you pay to the wholesaler for the property you got?
30 grand, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know what?
30 grand's average. Like, you shouldn't be in that business if you're not targeting 30 grand.
Yeah. You've landed some poor product if you're making less than that.
I mean, as a wholesaler, yeah. Like, I know some of them will go 5 grand, 10 grand. I don't think you pay your bills at that number.
No.
I saw a lot of that in January when things were slower. I was seeing things going out on wholesale deals and they would keep decreasing the wholesale fee. And so at the time when we signed ours, it was, I was seeing a lot of 5 and 10 grand out there because I think people were scared. People that took the risk and made moves like yourself, even though you paid the wholesale fee.
It's a good investor to make that move in that dip, right?
Yeah.
We were in that dip and you guys are still buying projects, right? Like us, like we're still buying projects in this dip. We knew it was going to come up. If we hear what Ping was saying, we knew it was going to come up, which is how long it was going to take. And now we see it's the summer and, everything's bouncing back and it's a great time for you guys to sell the properties.
Yeah, I know, AJ, you're talking about having that, what do you call it, the heating...
market heater, yeah.
Yeah, you have the market heater and you almost say that, okay, well, I only made this money maybe because of that. But it's not entirely true because people, when they're flipping houses, you flip houses in a good market, an upwards market, a downturn market, you don't realize losses unless you sell. And the thing is that anybody can say, oh, you got lucky with the market heating. Well, you also get unlucky if the market goes down. It's just a matter of averaging it out. And as long as you're making the correct decisions in your budgeting, your renovations, and what you can do, because if the market was on a downturn, your pivot would have been maybe not spend as much money on these renovations. You could cost down and you could become more versatile in how you operate this flip project. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. And I actually think we made it in a weird way for a down market or like a equal market because it was a sexy house. And so even in a slow market, this would have got eyeballs. The challenge that I think happened is when the market turned hot, it's still a sexy house. Maybe we could have got more for it, but I anticipate it would have sold still in a cold market because that's the reason we went sexy with it. As opposed to like a bland rental. You
know what you did that I was very surprised about is that I feel like you spent a lot of effort on the outside of the house. Andrew, do you spend money generally on the curb appeal of the house, like the outside?
I will if it needs it. Yeah. But that's factored into the numbers from the get-go. So this house that we're talking about most recently didn't have to do much. We had to do a new concrete step in the front, tiny bit of paver work. Yeah. Other than that, beautiful exterior. So yours, there was more of a exterior.
The curb appeal was horrendous.
Yeah. I was there. I actually know.
Well, the guy was a hoarder and he had like an enclosed patio that was throwing stuff off. And I didn't have the answer at the start. And people were giving me really like out there answers like, oh, you can build a porchette and this and that. And you know what? The simple wins, right? Like we didn't actually spend that much. I think it looks like we spent more than we did. I painted the driveway, $350. I painted the exterior of the house, $1,200.
You painted it with that, you did the tar paint thing, right?
Yeah.
That looked great, yeah.
So you were there the day I think it got painted. It got painted earlier that day, right? So $350, $1,200 for the exterior, right? I didn't put a new door in. I chopped off the patio, just the top half of it. I already had a bin there, so maybe you can say $200 for that. So what are we sitting at? Like $2,000?
Yeah.
And then the mulch I bought for $4, like 5 bags of them, and I had like a day laborer, $1,800 or something like that is what I spent on the curb appeal.
Now, when you're doing all that work yourself and you're coordinating it, do you find it hard or do you like it?
It varies, so if I'm on like a phone call day, there's no better place than my car for phone calls. So as I'm driving to place and just like rolling them out, and then I get a little physical, I go to Home Depot, at least I don't feel like I'm sitting at office. That's okay. It could go both ways. Like, I mean, as long as it's not every day like that, if I get one day a week like that, I'm okay with it.
So these are all things, because Andrew, actually, I'll show you pictures of it later, but I like the way that you had laid out the front. You did the nice, the matte black kind of paint in the front, and everything tied in. He did it in such a nice way. You can tell his background of work when it came to the design of apps, because he used not too many contradicting colors. There was the matte black, there was a certain earth tone, the browns that kind of tied into the brick and the ceiling, and then there was one other color. What was it? You had a white or something?
It's a charcoal. So black and a charcoal, unless you're talking about the soffits. But
yeah, exactly. So you had 3 colors going in there, and it wasn't overwhelming. It was clean, it was easy, and then with a nice fresh black driveway, everything just tied in. So anybody going to this place, it felt very nicely updated from the outside. It just overall tied in. I have a question for you, because I know you worked with Skylar a lot on this project. You guys talked all the time. What was one of the things that you felt brought a lot of value to you in terms of being able to control the project?
You know what? We had a timeline that we were supposed to have at the start, because on the other thing, I didn't learn as much on my partnership projects, right? Because he kind of ran the whole show.
Yeah.
Sequence was key at the start. Once this execution project management, I think I was okay there. Like, if I knew what I had to do and it's just getting it done, I've done that my whole life, right?
Yeah.
But knowing what to get done, what matters at the start, I think you see a lot of value.
Yeah.
A ton. Like just organizing, making it this mess, this chaos into some kind of order of what the plan of attack is.
You were lining up sequence of workers to come in too.
Yeah, well, and we went with one crew who did most of the work here. They're very versatile.
Yeah.
I might have, rates could be here and there, but they're versatile. And I did that intentionally, but maybe the next one wouldn't be like that. But just still, the sequence, what matters, that at the start, just getting those things right.
Yeah.
I think had a lot of value.
Did you talk to Skylar a lot about how much things should or ought to cost?
Yes. First off, I just get multiple quotes, because I'm learning anyway. On pretty much anything, I get multiple quotes. But if it was in their handle, like installation, floor costs, we ran all those numbers. Washrooms, we ran all those numbers. Kitchen install, and so I'd have Skylar, I'd have my previous experience, and then I have like all these randoms had come in giving me quotes as my references for prices. Yeah.
Okay, so there was a lot of control that was able to be had from the start, and so you knew where you were going on the project, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no, so that's awesome, right? And Andrew, I know we talked a lot about what it was that should be done with the project. What was the biggest point of value, I think, that you may have found from collaborating in this?
I think the contacts, your network is your net worth. I think I've said it here before months ago.
A million times, yeah.
It's a bit cliche. It is so true. So being able to share the different contacts and the different suppliers that I know you guys have worked so hard to find and vet, that was huge. And then also just to bounce ideas off of in terms of decisions. We were at one point going to leave the basement unrenovated. Yeah. And through conversations, it turns out that we did it, and it ended up being one of the very high points of this project. Yeah. And you saw it. It's beautiful. It's huge. And so it was nice to be able to share ideas too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And even when it comes to being able to make your business plan, I know we talked a lot about how much things ought to cost and how much things should work out, and making sure to find sometimes people who can fit into the business model, the business plan of where can you realize a profit margin? Because sometimes we do work, and I know a lot of people who flip houses. They flip houses, and then everybody makes money except the person flipping the house, right? And it's troublesome. It's a little disheartening, but it's important to be able to plug all these things in. It's like you have to create the equation and make people fit into the equation sometimes. Skylar, how did you find, working with AJ on this?
AJ's a great shopper when it comes to getting quotes. I think you enjoy that stuff, and you enjoy the knowledge of, and that's stuff that I did years ago. I didn't really like it as much. And the thing with the relationships I have now, they're kind of my friends, right? I use them so often. I talk to them so much. I see the countertop guys. They're always the same guys, even though you never saw them. I see them all the time. No, but yeah, AJ's great. Andrew's great. It's cool to see. And going along this project, we never do Barry and the fireplace, and we do a big kitchen island, and it was a house that probably maybe I wouldn't have bought. You took the dive for it, and it was a great project.
Can I ask a question about the quotes? What was the biggest disparity or the biggest spread from a low quote to a high quote, and what was that aspect of the reno, if you can recall?
Well, okay, I did at the start. I had someone quote the whole job just to kind of see where the cost is, and I have another project, and I am going about that route. I don't think I'm going to do it, just to see what's there in the market. And this guy came along. It was just crazy. It was a super inflated number, but just I got my install of floors, for an example, about $2 for material and about $2 for install. Okay, so about $4 all in. This guy's just charging $4 on install, right? And then his floor costs more. And so if you don't know what you're doing, these guys are like sharks. They'll take advantage of you. And it, it seems like it's all wrapped up, but when you knock it down, so that was like a huge one. Then I had one guy at the very start, because I had one day where I had a viewing before I owned it, and I had a bunch of guys just come at the same time. And there's one veteran guy, and he was just basically telling me he'd do the whole project, but I had junk guys come in. And so my time was like divided between all these guys. I was running around with my head cut off. And he kind of in the middle started showing me up, and he goes, you know what the problem here is? You got too many guys, and your attention's not going nowhere. And then he shut up once the junk guy left. It was me and him one-on-one. So I'm like, oh, this guy's doing this on purpose, right? You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, he's playing me, right? Yeah. So I go, buddy, get the fuck out of here, right? You know what I mean? I just, like, you have to kind of show these guys who's boss, because I'm curious. So I ask questions, and sometimes people think like the humility, or to be curious, you have to be open-minded. I don't want to be arrogant because you don't learn, but they may misinterpret this guy's like a newbie. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I have a lot of knowledge, but I don't play it because I want to learn stuff. So I'll ask questions. I come from like a humble place, but sometimes you have to kind of show them what's up,
I also think if you know what's going on, but you ask those questions anyways, you can kind of see how they react and see how they answer your questions as a part of the vetting process, because it's not all about the numbers. You got to have that relationship. So if already at the front end they're bullshitting you, then that maybe isn't the person that you want to work with. But if they're giving you answers that you know the answers to, that you can build off of a relationship, then that's going to be valuable in the long term.
Yeah, and outside of the numbers, just relationship. If you're doing that on the get-go, what are you going to do during the project, right? So you just get out, hey, this guy's going to be a difficult guy to work with, even if his number was good. And I don't want that type of headache.
That also comes, sometimes you'll find people who come in more affordable. We had a few contractors who we were actually sad to lose in a way, but that was also because they would come in, do the work, and they promised to do it at such a great price. But one of the problems we found was they needed their money right away. The minute they were done, we didn't even have time to check their work. Right. And we honestly, that for us, for example, is a boundary of like, we can't operate that way. We can't jump because, you do not have the time cushion in order to let us go through our process and inspect. So, I mean, you need to be able to learn what are your boundaries and what is your systems of operations, and find people to plug into you. You're not always plugging into the way everybody else operates.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things is too, if you don't ask, you never get. So for instance, I have this crew I work with now, great relationship with them. They're great guys. They do great work, and it's done on time. I can pay this guy not whenever I want, but he's flexible with me on that payment. So instead of needing money right away, he's never running me down for money. He will ask like, hey, can you send me some of this to cover this? No problem. The last job, he started without any money. He didn't even need a deposit from me to get going. And it's just because we have that relationship now. And it's all documented, it's on paper, but he just is a little more lenient because he knows that we have a good thing going, and we both can win from working together.
That's warm. That's really warm. That's a warm feeling, when you can do that with people. Like even like Jer started our HVAC. It's a $12,000 job. He's almost done, hasn't asked us for a dime. And I had to add back. I'm just like, yo, send us an invoice so that like I can, process some accounting, right? But I mean, it's good. This is when you have a trusting relationship and you can work, there's speed in what you can get accomplished, right?
And maybe this is a little quick tip, and maybe you guys have done this before. I can share this. It helps to be nice to people. So if you know how many guys are on the job, a couple weeks into it, maybe buy some Uber Eats. Send them lunch. Say, hey guys, by the way, Friday, don't bring lunch. I'm covering lunch. And so I sent a bunch of subs and drinks and chips to them on site. And it's just a little thing that goes a long way. You build that relationship, and they want to do better for you, and you want to make sure that they're taken care of. And again, it's another warm feeling because it makes it a family, and it's still business, but at the same time, it's a good way to keep building that relationship with people.
On the property management side, we have a maintenance guy. His name is Donnie. Right, and he's a really nice guy, very humble, but he does a lot of work for us. And one of the things he does, he tells me he actually, when he goes to the transfer stations to remove garbage, right? Because every now and then he drives a big truck, he'll throw out the garbage. He brings coffees to the people who work there because he sees them so often. And just by doing that, people know him. And people sometimes look, if he doesn't have a lot of stuff, he's like, yeah, just dump it. Don't worry. You can just go. Coffees go a long way. Doing little gestures that show that you're thinking about people and the people that you're working with regularly. It doesn't matter if they're even slightly disconnected. It goes a long way. And this is the power of relationships and how much it matters.
100%. And the numbers have to work, but more important than the numbers are the people.
People have to work.
And it's a people business, and you got to work with the people, because I never say I for anything. Like, I didn't make a profit on my last project. We did, whether that's me, contractors, my investors. It's a we business, not a me business.
Yeah. Political. It's coming out.
I know. You can see soon we're going to see him at a podium, just saying the right stuff there.
And vote for me for mayor.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, okay, so now that you guys have done these projects successfully, we'll start off with you, AJ. What is something that you feel you would have done differently had you been able to start this project over again?
One is, I think I should have looked at, this is a different market. I think if I added a washroom, there's a significant amount more value. I did discuss that idea, but we elected not to. That's one of them. Outside of that,
where would you? Oh, a 2-piece on the main floor? No,
yeah, like a powder room.
Powder room in the main floor.
A powder room. I think it would add a lot more value. I mean, there's not much more else. There could have been like different contractors, stuff like that. I got it in January. I was going to be able to do landscaping till March or April. Anyways, those are things out of my control.
Maybe on the sales side, have been a little more patient. Do you think?
On a rating out of 10, I think we did 5 out of 10 on the sale.
And not 95,000.
But no, we didn't do horrible. So like my agent would say, we made 845, but the neighbors only sold for 835, and your landscaping wasn't done. He has a valid point, but I just think that where he got it wrong is the following: we made a house that I think is supposed to be an emotional buy for somebody, and he's trying to logically justify it. So if it's an emotional buy, I don't have to justify this with what the comp on the street is. Hey, he's not letting this go. The market's just getting hotter. This is all he has to say. The market's just getting hotter. He knows what the market's at, and he's willing to hold if he doesn't get that rate.
Yeah.
Someone's in love enough. What's the mortgage payment over a 25-year amortization? Yeah. If they like it, it's not much. Those are the guys who can get the most value out of.
Yeah.
And I think if you're looking at the wrong lens, you won't.
That's one of the things where I talk to people about this all the time, but you have to, when you're flipping a property, you may often target a purchase of passion. A purchase of passion is somebody who's going to come in and make that purchase based off of the location, maybe the appeal, how pretty or nice the kitchens and bathrooms are, and how they can envision themselves living in that. And that just matches up more than it matches with other people. That's a passionate purchase. And if you're targeting that, you have to be able to exercise patience and wait. So I feel like that's a lesson.
And I think you were the one that planted that seed, but it made total sense on all other sales training I had.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, closet space. I didn't think from a female lens on a few things, like the washroom. There's a few things. My wife came in there, that's what she's thinking about. And the guy who bought it was a guy, like a single father.
Yeah.
So maybe my buyer profile was a little shorter than it should have been, because I had 50 viewings and like 2 offers. Technically, maybe we should add more. And that's what he's scaring me with, the realtor.
Yeah.
But I just think, people thought maybe it was out of their price range or it was going to be bidding war. That's why I didn't come in. Yeah.
We're going to look at this later at one of our projects, but and I'm even noticing myself having this problem where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, we're renovating an entire house, and you can tell this house is designed by a guy. Right? It's just like, things are a little bit too like, I think, anyway, without going into it, things are a certain way. But anyway, let's pass the question on to you, Andrew. What would you have done differently now looking at the project that maybe could have been better?
So at the beginning, we planned to just do the main floor and leave the basement demoed. And we were thinking of a buyer that was going to live upstairs, buy it, and then slowly renovate the basement over time.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense as I say it now. I think we were just trying to save money on the renovation. So we ended up doing the basement. However, I had finished the main floor and then decided to do the basement. So every time I had to buy everything basically twice.
Yeah.
So 2 different times of buying doors and trim, 2 different times of buying paint, even both kitchens at different times. So I would have done that differently.
Where did that hurt you, though? It hurt you in time or cost?
It was just more of a headache. A little bit more time, not really more cost, but just the headache of having to do everything and buy everything over again that I had just purchased. The other thing, very minor, the backsplash, I bought it on sale and I thought it was a good deal. So I saved $30 in the grand scheme of things, because it's not a huge amount of space to cover. And I think if I just did a little more thinking on the backsplash, maybe got an opinion of a designer, I would have had a better choice and it would have looked nicer. Didn't affect us in the end, or maybe it did. Maybe we would have sold it for 10 grand more with a different backsplash. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I would have done those 2 things differently.
How many offers did you have in the property?
I was offended actually, because we had 62 showings and 9 offers. So it's still a good number.
Yeah.
I would have liked 62 offers though.
Yeah. What strategy did you use? Did you use the list low, sell high, or?
Listed a little bit under market or a little bit of what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Did 1 week.
What did you list it at?
We listed at $899.
Okay, yeah. So you did a bit
So
more,
it was low because the neighbor sold for $1 million the month previous.
Yeah, and you got 1.11.
1.11.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that gives a lot of perspective into this. So guys, I'm really happy to have you guys on the show and share all this. If anybody has any questions about how these flip projects work, even in today's market for 2023, by all means get in touch with us and we'll be happy to show you how.